Welcome to the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. Whether inside or outside the loop, we are talking everything soccer in Houston. Y'all ready? Let's get it. Houston, welcome to another episode of the Bayou City Soccer Podcast. My name is Ruiz Segura, and we're happy to have you join us tonight. This beautiful Monday. The weather has been fantastic here in Houston, but I'm not alone. No Cristian Putalias tonight. We send them out in a nice vacation, I guess. El Jefe sent them on a nice retreat out in the boonies, out in the mountains. But we are joined by Joey Chavala. Joey's here. What's up, Joe? How are you doing?
What up, gentlemen? I'm doing good.
Not too bad. And another thing, no Edson in the back today. He's celebrating a big milestone down in RGV. And when we get him back here next week, we'll ask him all about it and get him to tell us everything that kind of went down. But we are joined by El Jefe. So Dustin Richardson, man, a little bit of celebrity status lately. How you been, dude?
Good. I'm just, making the rounds on the podcasts of the world.
There you go, man. I've always say it every time that you join. It seems like we have a lot of fun, and so far this live streams that we've had have been fantastic. We have a lot of people interacting, so we hope that is the case. So if you are listening live on YouTube, on Twitter, chime in, throw your comments on here. Don't matter what it is. I had a coach when I was in school that said there's no such thing as stupid questions, which I found out there is. But he said that his when he asked that, and someone asked him how many feathers are in a duck, and he's like, "Okay, that's a stupid question. Like, why are you asking me stuff like this?" But needless to say, feel free to interact, get in here. Any questions that you may have, as we're here to talk everything Houston Dynamo, and Dynamo Tucson's are back. We'll talk a little bit about them towards the end of the show. Obviously, if you're on here trying to listen to Houston Dash. What's up? Jay Hurtado is in the house, is watching. We got old soccer guy as well, waving hi. Everybody's getting in here. I was going to say, if you do want to listen to Dash are ready to kick off this week. And I'm excited because I'll be there on Friday cheering the ladies on. It's a hopeful fan that things will be turned around. It can't get any worse at this point, right? Or can it? But that's for you guys to decide. But I want to invite you guys to listen to our Wednesday stream, which is the Orange and Blueprints podcast. So Manny Olivares and Diego Martinez are the main hosts of that show. And there may be some guest appearances. Maybe Dustin, maybe Joey. I mean, it is prediction week, so we'll get in there. Of course, you have that articles that do pop up regarding the predictions of the season. There's Christian. He said, "Love from the mountains, guys." We love you, Chris. But again, Houston Dynamo. Been a busy week. It was kind of odd, Dustin. Early game on Saturday. I did not get to watch it live. I was telling Joey I had to go back and catch it on Sunday since I was at the rodeo trying to feed some goats, man. That's what I was doing at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. What about you?
You were feeding Messi?
Yes.
Yes. No, I was. Yeah,
Oh my
the
God.
1:30 Saturday game. Like, what are we doing, MLS? Come on.
I love that.
I know. I was one of the people complaining last year about how all the games are at the same time, and then the first time the Dynamo get like a different game, I'm busy and doing stuff. I'm like, why can't they play at a normal time? But yeah, I was like you. I had to go back and watch it after.
Yeah, I was. I went to the Dynamo 2 game and ran to some of the guys that help us cover. I think Ricky was out there, Aldo was out there, and talking to the communication guy, to Leo. I was telling him I'm like, dude, I didn't get to watch the game. I was just keeping up with FUTMob and trying to keep and create all our graphics. So I was out there, but seeing a 0-0 felt kind of good. So let's get started with that. Dynamo news. There's really nothing happening right now, which is normal apart from the games, right? I mean, there is some rumor mill in the background. Hey, there's Aldo. Look, Aldo heard his name and he showed up as well. But they we'll get into the rumor mill as well. But let's go ahead and get started with this game that happened so early on week 3. Lower.com field. It was a 0-0 draw. We have been doing a bunch of highlights lately. Dustin, and I was mentioning to Joey, for some reason it wasn't working properly, but we have some. We have some, of course. Um, but Joey, just start with the lineup. You know, something that we asked Ben Olsen in the presser before the game, match day or -1, and he did some little changes to it. Man, what? Just take us on what we saw, and some of the things that he even mentioned to you after the game.
Yeah, he said he said anything's on the table lineup wise. I mean, especially it should be the case after an awful performance like against Miami. He went and dropped Ibrahim Aliou for Nico Ladero. Ladero's impressed off the bench. Aliou hasn't had the best time going forward yet this season. I think it was a fair switch. He wanted to go for a more narrow defensive approach against Columbus, and I questioned it before the game kicked off because I thought they were going to need some width because Columbus plays super narrowly, and I didn't want to attack their midfield because that's their strength. But it ended up working. It was the right call.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Sviatchenko was not on the bench even. So it's a little bit worrisome, the defensive back line, especially seeing Escobar also, come out early in I think it was like the 25th, 27th minute of the match. So little things like that. And I think do have to add that Tarbell has kind of grown into the starting. I mean, it's kind of difficult, Dustin, when you take 6 goals in your first 2 games. But we do see this, and I play this clip real fast of, 10 minutes in, there's a free kick. Diego Rossi takes it, and you get Tarbell to make a nice save on it.
It's Rossi, and it's parried away.
I mean, things that were not necessarily surprised with Tarbell.
Certainly no question about
it was a decent free kick. It just started curving a little bit inwards, but I mean, you still have to be there, right, Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, goalies got to make those saves, right? Sometimes those are the ones that you want where they're not difficult saves, but they're saves that get you moving, get you diving, kind of get you into the game. And like you said, that was early on, so and I think it kind of helped him get the rhythm of the game going on. Columbus didn't have a lot of chances, but they had a few decent ones, and Tarbell was able to come up, and his first clean sheet since, oh man, what was it? Didn't he have like the 12 saves against Colorado or something crazy last year?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've seen him have these good games, and he had another good one this week too. And Ethan Bartlow, I know Joey gave him man of the match in the ratings. If you haven't checked that out on the website yet, but especially after the Dallas game when he just gave Musa a goal, younger guy, you could see him maybe hang his head, get into a rut, but he bounced back really, really nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you hit it on the dot on that, man. Just because of some of the movements that we've seen. I think Joe, you asked Tarbell after the game as well about just working that chemistry between all those new faces in the lineup, and he's a guy of not many words, and he just said, next guy up. But it's very, it's understandable, what he's trying to explain in the sense of at the end of the day, you just have to make it work, Joey.
Exactly. I mean, he's not in control of who's in front of him. He's not signing players. He's not in charge of fitness. So he's got to do his best. He's got to communicate. He's got to build chemistry with whoever's there. And he did that on the day. Got a clean sheet. So can't hit on Tarbell at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I think we discussed it. I know for sure I discussed it with David in our Spanish podcast, which that's another plug right there for Thursdays if you guys are interested. But I told him that, the lineup as it was, even before we knew, the health status when it came to Sviatchenko and the back line, was that maybe rotating one of those players, whether it be, in my case, I was thinking between Basi and Kovalchik, and obviously Duenas and Nico, making, some sort of switch, not necessarily both, but one of them. And we see the lineup, no Aliu, and obviously Basi and Kovalchuk stayed there. And like you guys mentioned, it was a good play there, just because, yeah, you lost a little bit of stretching the field, something that we mentioned, Aliu does very well. But it leads to chances like this one, right? With Nico Loredo taking a long distance shot. At the end of the day, it's not a fantastic shot, but it keeps them in their toes at the end of the day, Dustin.
Yeah, I mean that's what Ladero, I think, was brought to the team to do, right? He's going to add that kind of attacking, get his own shots. He can set guys up. He's been there, done that kind of player. He's won everything there is to win in MLS. He's scored. He's assisted. He's that kind of guy you're probably losing a little bit defensively, right? When you take Aliu out for Ladero, but you're hoping to kind of kickstart the offense. They didn't score. Say kickstart the offense, what you will, but I mean, Ladero's dangerous, and he's, even at 30, whatever years old he is, when he gets the ball, you still kind of, like something might happen.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right. Yeah, and it was good to see them, obviously, in the game with Miami. They were Kovalchuk, him, and Dueñas got involved, obviously get that goal to kind of take away the clean sheet from Miami, but those guys did change something. Like, there's something different when you bring those two guys in. We saw it also with FC Dallas a little bit, but it was nice to see Ledo get the start. And Ben openly said about, Aliu. Aliu was getting a lot of heat. I mean, they're hearing it from somewhere, right? Whether it be a social media buzz or whatever it may be. But it was kind of refreshing as well, finally seeing Ben, remove Aliu from the lineup. And again, not because he's not doing good, but just to mix it up, give them a different way to approach their game. And obviously towards the end, Aliu was close to scoring. But we'll hit that closer to where that's at. But before the halftime ends, we do see another big save from Tarbell on what was a wide open, I think it was Farsi, if I'm not mistaken, that gets ahead of everybody and almost beats Tarbell.
Just not enough connection within them. Over the top it goes, and the shot by Farsi is denied by Tarbell.
Yeah. How many times did we see those type of shots being blocked by but I was going to say by Steve Clark. So it's good to see Tarbell put some work, man. I think, like you said, I mean, he's had some good games, right? I mean, all the 6 goals in the past aren't necessarily all his fault, if any. But no, it's refreshing to see the team just starting to slowly look better, because people may see it, obviously fans are going to react and be like, oh my God, you drew 0-0 in Columbus. It's a big deal when you're playing against a very good team that put in their best lineup, or that's my opinion. I don't know, Joey, if you will agree with that or not.
Yeah, I totally agree with it. For now, I mean, guys, if other guys don't step up, this is probably the best lineup for now. I think it's also game dependent as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it played into the Columbus game well with how narrow they play. I think maybe want a little more verticality against RSL next week, and then maybe you want to go back to the more narrow approach against the Sounders. It all depends on the game. I don't think there's such thing as a team's best lineup.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely always developing and changing throughout it. And, the rest of the game was just choppy, a lot of fouls from both teams, plenty of yellow cards for the Dynamo. The Dynamo did enough, of course, to not let, I guess, or more not led, but allowed Columbus Crew to feel comfortable with the ball, which is, they still held possession, Dustin. I know you asked Ben about, but you did. What was the stat? Was it 27 games since Does that sound right?
They went 27 straight games having more possession than the opponent before the Miami loss, and Miami had more possession. And the one game that the 27 before that was the game against Dallas last season when Dorsey got a red in like the 10th minute or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
So they were playing with 10 men for 80 minutes. So, I mean, and Ben kind of shrugged it off in typical Ben fashion. It's like, yeah, it's possession, whatever. You guys look at that. But then he kind of was like, well, possession's really key to what we do. So, I mean, and you look at the way they play, and we've seen the way Olsen plays. They want the ball, right? They want to be on the ball, and they want to dictate the play, whether that's slow, like they do a lot of times, but they want the ball. And Columbus is the one team in MLS that's even more possession based than them. So it was an interesting clash of styles, but I mean, I think like Joey said, you play to your opponent, right? You set the lineup, you set your tactics for what you got in Columbus, and you have to say Ben got it right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. OSG asking Dustin and Joey about keeping Aliu out. You guys want to touch on that?
I mean, I'll touch on it, and then I'll let Aliu's brother Joey talk. I mean, I think Joey and I are probably like the only two people in the United States that appreciate Aliu. But at the same, and I say that to say that he hasn't been good this year, right? Like he's had moments. He was good in the Miami game, I thought, for what it's worth, as bad as they played. But you kind of need him, right? Like he's the only guy that gets forward, basically. Ponce's not really like a speed, get behind the last defender kind of forward. Kowalczyk isn't that. Bossi isn't that. Until you throw X on Arzu out there and let him just run at people. Aliu is kind of that guy. I would like to see Ladero more. Mm-hmm. And if that means for Aliu, okay. But at the same time, how much can Ladero really give you? You know, he's not going to play week in and week out at this stage in his career.
Yeah, and it's funny because that was my point with looking back at the lineup. What I would have done is I would have kept Aliu and I would have taken off Kowalczyk for Nico Loredo. Obviously, it changes a lot of things, you know, and I don't want to get too into it because I know you guys are going to destroy me on the tactical aspect of it. But at the end of the day, I feel that move seemed more suitable because a guy like Nico can actually find a guy that would stretch the field like Aliu and get him behind. And that's why I feel at the end of the day, Aliu just tends to disappear because he does all this work, both, you know, offensively and defensively, and it goes unnoticed. My big thing with Aliu is that he doesn't seem able to finish when the opportunities are right there. However, he scored most of the goals, you know, for the team in the last few seasons. Joey, is there anything you wanted to add about Aliu in, Aliu out?
Again, it's matchup based. I would keep Aliu in still. I thought he did really well off the bench. Oh, I was waiting for it because there was that chance that came to him where that who's the right back on Columbus made that absolutely made the absolutely absurd challenge on Aliu to stop that goal. I was waiting the call to tell Chris that Aliu was a super sub. He was going to lose his mind. That would have been the funniest thing ever if Aliu, of all people, was the super sub.
Absolutely.
But he did well off the bench. I thought he brought some good effort, but I think he needs to come back to the start against RSL. I think RSL definitely have a defense you could run at. They've kind of looked really choppy in the transition defenses here. They've kind of looked choppy in almost every aspect of soccer. RSL have not looked good so far. They've looked worse than the Dynamo have, and they have a win because Seattle rested a bunch of players for the Champions Cup. But I would bring Aliu back.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's I would do the same thing. You know, I know that you guys we always joke around, especially in our group chat, about, you know, progressive passes, progressive carries with Aliu. What does he do well? What does he not do well? But I will say, though, unlike maybe Chris, and I know he's listening, I'm not against, you know, not playing Aliu, because at the end of the day, I do see what he does well in Ben's system. But just I think some of the chemistry is missing with obviously the front three and maybe that DP10 that they continue to talk about, right? Maybe the key to unlock the system with Aliu in place. But of course, I mean, Spot Official, I am not ignoring you. He keeps asking, what about Batioja over Aliu? What about Arsu over Batioja? Those are legit things and legit questions. This is very early in the season, and I'm sure Ben.
I don't know if that's
I think one thing I saw, I'm usually the one on our Twitter. A lot of people talking about Batioja. He's played one game on Dynamo 2. He looked great, right? But let's calm down. Just a second.
Completely different level.
It's a very different. Sporting Kansas City 2 is probably one of the worst teams in MLS Next Pro.
and Andy Batio can't even feature for the first team as well because he's on loan to the second team. He's not even on an MLS contract.
Yeah, he'd have to get converted.
They'd have to make him a permanent signing like they just did with Arzu last year
and use their last international spot on him. So I don't think you're going to see Batioja for a little while.
Yeah,
Arzu is a different story, right? Like. He's been on the bench every game, but he hasn't got in yet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's an interesting one because with two, I think they're very similar players in the way that their speed is definitely above their competition, at least so far, from what we've seen. And Arsu was on fire, if you guys remember, in the beginning of that season, and that's how eventually he got that MLS contract midway after, obviously some injuries that happened for the first team, but. Yeah, I think if it continues this way, why not maybe give Arsu a chance? But again, it hasn't proven. I don't know. Time will tell. It's only the third week of the season. I mean, it'd be great to be towards the end and be like, hey, like the team is in playoffs and Arsu is one of their starters and not like one of the first guys off the bench. Dustin,
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, Anali and Quinones look close-ish if you look at practice, and some of our guys are out of practice taking pictures and stuff, and they're practicing. They're both ahead of Arzu when they come back, right? And people might hate what I'm about to say, but Ben wants his guys to play defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
that
I don't
just
know
answered that question, right?
Yeah, and I don't. And we saw the same thing with Sebas Ferreira, right? Like Ben just did not trust Ferreira. Like he'd scored a hat trick and he'd be back on the bench. That was a one-time thing. But he wants, you saw it, and Joey talked about this in the ratings thing. You saw how in the three things we learned. You saw how Ponce played that game. He's busting his ass to play defense, right? And that's what Ben wants out of that front three. That they're the first line of defense, basically.
Yeah.
When the other team has the ball, and I'm not saying Arzu isn't that, but putting 2 and 2 together. That could be why we haven't really seen much of Arzu quite yet.
It takes time to develop that too. I mean, he's still a 20-year-old player. He doesn't really have any first-team experience in his career, like whatsoever. So just to throw him out, especially in a game like that, where you have to really keep a good compact shape against Columbus or even the Miami game, when again you need to have a compact defense. Mm-hmm. You're not just going to throw someone who doesn't have experience doing that in there. He'll get time in the cup games. Open cup games come around, he'll get time. Leagues cup games come around, he'll get time. If there's a game where they're in a comfortable position, he'll get time as well. It's not the end of the world. It's 3 games into the year. We'll see him. I don't think we'll see him a lot, but we'll see him.
Yeah, Nathan asked about, whether we see Nelson and Anali in the same lineup. I don't think that would be the case, especially because seeing the way that they play, they definitely favor, using that right foot. If anything, I feel that it'd be more, obviously starter and backup, and Aliu gets moved elsewhere, whether it be as a, the backup striker or maybe even playing on the other wing if they want to do that. But we know this, right? That's usually not the Ben system. Usually he needs somebody on the right that tucks in and allows Dorsey to be that winger, of course. But Joey had even mentioned about, playing him as a right wing back at once. So who knows at this rate?
He would kill it. Ali could be Dorsey's backup. He'd be killer there.
Sorry, that's I mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, I think, especially with Quinones, we really need to to temper expectations for Quinones, right?
Mhm.
Like he got hurt in, I think it was February of last year.
A massive injury.
And it was a huge injury. He's been out. It'll be a year and a half or so since he last played soccer. So thinking he's going to come in and be a starter and turn the offense around is probably asking a lot of him. And Ali is the two. I mean, he tore his ACL. Yeah. And Ollie tore his ACL, and Ben and Pat have both called it, a much cleaner type injury. And ACLs are pretty common, sad as it sounds nowadays. And the surgeons can whip them back in. So Anali's
blindfolded now.
Yeah, basically. So Anali's probably going to be further along. But yeah, Quinones coming off like 16, 18 months off is going to be – he's got to basically rework himself into – soccer playing shape again.
Yeah. And I don't want to move all the way back because honestly we're pretty much done with the Colombians game, but I did want to have one more clip just because this was something interesting something to note. I would say that the last two games we saw a lot of errors that happened and led to goals. There were still errors in this game. If you guys go back, there was plenty of errors. They were just cleaned up nicely. Whether it be somebody finally decides to do a quote unquote professional tackle, a professional foul, get themselves a yellow. I was hoping that the yellow that Arthur got, I felt like that one was like the essential to a professional foul. But this one, Dueñas, I think is pretty close as well. Let me see if it plays.
Oh, this was an awful pass, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the inexperience right there.
Yep. And so the one that I was talking about, Arthur, was very similar to that. It was just, but Arthur actually, decides to pull the guy down, and it's something that we miss. And other was especially like the Miami one, because how often does he lose the ball? Not very often. But sometimes you need to have that fire aspect of it. I think this game it was a completely different team, man. They definitely look like they're soulless against Miami to an extent. But yeah, I know you guys are stats guys. I don't know if you can read those stats, but obviously the FODMAP stats. But everything was basically on the Columbus Crew side, of course. Possession, shots on target. I mean, it was one of those games that the Dynamo did everything they could to survive, and they did. So, we give them props for that, of course. But now it's time to move on, right? They come back home. This time they're going to be taking on RSL on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. If you're here locally, get your tickets, now. Go fill it up. And if you're not like Joey, you can obviously watch it on Apple TV, MLS Pass. So, those are fun games. I think those RSL games have slowly and surely become a little bit of a rivalry. So they seem to play so often, guys. But again, this is for Saturday. The current form for them in the last, I guess, 3 matches, did they get knocked out of the Champions Cup?
Yeah,
right?
They drew the first leg 0-0, then they lost.
Yeah.
And so they're out of Champions Cup. They got a decent win against Seattle Sounders, which actually watched that game. They scored towards the end of that game. And then they got obliterated by San Diego FC. And as you see there, all those games have been at home. So this is a away game for them. And what to expect from them, of course. I don't know. RSL tends to put up a good game, a bad game. It's all over the place. But before we discuss them and maybe, you guys can dig in of who you guys think that the Dynamo really, really need to lock in to find success. This was right here their starting lineup against San Diego. So
it's weak.
Yeah, it's not the best. It's not the best. So yeah, Joe, you just started, man. Your first thoughts? It's weak.
I mean, they lost a lot of players towards the end of last season and then into this off season. Like they lost Gomez,
Julio Anderson, right?
Yep, Anderson Julio to Dallas. They lost Chicho Arango. They lost a lot of pieces. Even Gavin Beavers is another important piece that they lost. He was starting to break out as a good goalkeeper. It's rough out there, and I don't think they replaced players very well. They brought in a few young wingers. They got Mark Zook. There's another Australian guy that I can't pronounce. The Gonsalves, Piol. None of these guys have been that much a game changer. Like Gonsalves was brought in to be a game changer, and he's been rough, man. He's not been that good. So it's kind of sad. They brought in Elias Manuel as well to be a game changer from the Red Bulls, and he just said, "Screw you guys, I don't want to be here." And then they sold him to Botafogo. It's just like everything that could have gone wrong this last year, pretty much for them, has gone wrong. They have a very good coach who runs a very good compact system, kind of like Ben Olsen in a way that gets a lot out of some lesser players. So they're still competitive, but I don't see them threatening many teams, and I think the Dynamo should have a pretty successful time if they play their game well.
Yeah, I would agree with you, man. I feel a little bit more confident going into this game for the Dynamo just from what we've seen. The first two games, yes, they lost. Critical errors, and if they're able to clean them up like they did against Columbus Crew. I feel that they are for sure should be able to get some points at home. Obviously, you want all 3 points. It's important for them to get a first win at Shell Energy Stadium. So Dustin, what will it take? I mean, here's a lineup that I call it the predicted, but obviously this is last week's lineup. There'll be changes for the starting lineup. Escobar is likely not going to be there just from Ben's statements that it could be 2-3 days, it could be a week for him to go back, nothing crucial, and then Zviachenko's in the air. But yeah, what are you expecting, or what kind of tweaks would you see?
Yeah, Sviachenko is a big question mark. His long-term health is, I think, obviously really important for this team, right? Like you don't want Bartlow and Femi for the whole year if you can. If you have the choice. If Escobar is out and Steres is in, like I feel like that's a decent, swap. Like Steres isn't a big drop off. We saw him kind of get bodied on that that chance earlier that you showed
by Farsi.
Farsi.
Mm-hmm.
So he still has his moments, but he's a veteran. He's a guy that's been around, and he kind of has taken to that left back role. He got to play it a lot last year. And yeah, like we go back to the offense, right? Do they bring Aliu back? Do they move Kowalczyk? Do they do Aliu Ladero instead of Ladero Kowalczyk? I think there's some options, but like Joey said, this RSL team, their one win over a Seattle team that was basically resting their guys for the, I think they played Cruz Azul.
Mm-hmm. They got beat down by San Jose to start of the season, 4-0.
And then they gave up 2 stoppage time goals this last weekend to lose to San Diego, who's an expansion team. I mean, they've been decent, but still an expansion team. So yeah, I'm with Joey here. Like, this is a game you need to win, especially 0-2 at home to start the year. Like, you need to beat this team. You're better than this team, I think, is pretty obvious. Maybe not looking at the standings right now, but man for man, playing at home, this is a game you got to get.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned, the stats and where they were. Obviously, starting last week, the Dynamo were sitting dead last in the Western Conference Finals. I saw, some people on Twitter saying how this was, or the question was, are they the worst team? I would say go look at Sporting Kansas City, as you mentioned, Sporting Kansas City too.
I think the Galaxy look even worse than Kansas City.
Yeah, for sure.
They look awful.
Yeah, but
I showed you guys that graphic. Sporting Kansas City's lost 12 games 11.
In a row. Yeah, they've lost
in
11
all competitions.
Out of 12.
Yeah, not unbeaten, have lost them. Like, haven't even drawn. And the Galaxy are the defending champions, and they can't even
The Galaxy just look rough.
Yeah,
man.
and obviously
they have an excuse at least. They're peppered with injuries. So
and they did get rid of a lot of key players, right? Like
they were
and defenders, and
they were buried by the salary cap. They basically had to get rid of Joveljic and Brugman and
they're with $0 from what they
Delgado's the most underrated
zero
loss
game.
They had.
I love that zero game. They're just out. We have none. We're broke.
Yeah. So I'm assuming the predictions wise, I think we all feel that this is gonna be the first 3 full points for the Dynamo. Do you guys want to do a score line, Joey?
Yeah. We're gonna see some goals here. Actually, I think Ponce gets on the score sheet twice.
Yes,
and then we get our boy Ali who gets a goal too. I'm gonna go 3-0 Dynamo.
I like that. Hey, everything to get some goals for my what's it called, my golden boot line.
Joey's killing us.
Am I still scraping you guys? I know Kuiper's scored again. Dreyer scored again.
Joey's killing us.
So what about you, Dustin?
Had a goal disallowed.
Joey says 3-0.
I'm with Joey. Like, I feel like Ponce gets off the schneid this week. Ponce brace 2-0 Dynamo.
I like it. Okay, 2-0. Yeah, I'm with you guys as well. I think 2-0 sounds fair. I think definitely a clean sheet at home. Players obviously to watch. The big one is Diego Luna, but I don't think he's enough. And from the goals that they even got against Seattle, there was a lot of luck. So we know that the Dynamo can create luck for other teams. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully they clean it up. But
who scores for them? That's the thing. I just don't even know who scores from them. That Piol guy is like the only somewhat dangerous guy, and he's a 20.
I think he has one goal. He has,
yeah.
So I didn't add the graphic knowing that Chris wasn't gonna be here, but Chris, he's listening, and he threw his Chris orange divination in here. So it's basically us, man. He puts it the Dynamo get their first win and a second clean sheet. So he believes in the team as well. We'll definitely add that as a poll on our social medias for people to check it out. I kind of slept on it being such an early game on the last one, but you know what? Jack McLean did not score. No one did. So it's all good, right? But guys,
he's 0 for 3 now, right?
Chris?
No, he hit one of them.
He hit the opening day one? What was his opening day one?
Well,
something
because he did 2 of them on opening day.
He did like McGlynn shots outside the box. And
4, and he tied that. Like that, he did get 4.
Okay.
And then he had Tarbell doing like
long pass. Yeah.
And then he had the Busquets Arthur one last week.
Yeah, that was a little off.
Yeah. It started out well. I told Dustin, I'm like, hey, it's all
I know.
right now.
I was like, Chris is nailing this.
Yeah, 30 minutes in, it looked like it was gonna hit, and then it went to like Arthur being the worst team on the field, it seems like. But again, he cleaned it up this week, so hopefully it keeps going. Maybe it was just going home, maybe going back to Columbus helped them out. He had some fans out there asking for pictures and autographs.
Got to see his boy Nagby.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to talk about with the Dynamo games. But there is rumor mill, just one guy or one name kind of out there. Obviously, Tom Boger has talked about it and a few other insiders. But their sources are saying that Houston Dynamo are nearing a deal to sign American midfielder Dwayne Holmes. He's 30 years old, currently playing with Preston. It's in the championship.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so it looks like he may be coming home, if that, no pun intended, all pun intended there, since he spent his whole career in England. But Dustin, man, or Joey, you guys probably know a little bit more about this guy, obviously.
Yeah.
He is coming out of an injury, I believe, so he hasn't been playing much. If this is the guy that they may bring in, here in the next couple of weeks before the transfer window closes, would this be a DP contract, a TAM deal? What are you guys thinking?
It's a free transfer, so he only makes about $350K a season on his contract at Preston, which is not a lot. So if they were to pay him anywhere near a DP salary, that would be ludicrous. So no, he's not going to be a DP. He shouldn't even be a TAM player. But he's a player that could come in, give some experience. He's a good soccer player. He's not a game changer, I don't think. But he could play. He could play as an 8. He could play as a 10. He could play in that right wing position. He could play a little bit of everything. So I think it's interesting how it's going to affect their depth chart, especially if they want to bring in a DP10 still. Maybe that's not on the cards anymore if that's not what they want to do. Because the depth chart gets really confusing if you add Holmes in there and then you add another DP10. Because then where does Kovalchuk play? Where does Eric Dueñas play? Brooklyn Reigns gets really knocked out. But I mean, I guess these are good problems to have.
Yeah, I would. Okay, Dustin, since you know this guy, you probably know, especially from like what is it called, Football Manager or whatever you may see it as. But obviously, this guy has played with the U.S. national team maybe a couple of times, if that's too many. But what's his playing position? Is he central midfielder? What does he tend to lean on? Defensive, attacking, all over the place.
Yeah, he's kind of one of those, like he kind of fits in that, can play right midfield, can play in the middle, can play, just attacking type guy that they need. And yeah, I'm with Joey. Like, you're not going to go DP on this guy. And I saw our friend Jeff talking about his injury. He did break his leg February 11th. I was looking into it. So about a month ago. He was expected to be out for 2 months. So there were some reports that he was going to be out for the rest of the season. Preston's coach came out and said he was going to miss like 2 months. So how bad is his leg break? We're not really sure. But if he's back in another month, say, then I think you're okay. But a 30-year-old coming off a leg injury, that's something great. But again, like Joey said, I don't think this is your big splash guy, right? This is a guy that can come in kind of like a Ladero, and be just another piece that can set up goals, can maybe score a few goals. And yeah, he's played in England his whole life. I think he moved there when he was like 2. He's basically been English his whole life. He's bounced around the English pyramid. So getting to come back to the US is probably something that interests him. And yeah, he if you can get him for 300, 400K, then yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, why not? That is definitely a much needed thing, especially in the MLS with the amount of games that they play. And they continue to say how it's the most watched, or most attended, what's it called, league in the world, behind, I think, was it EPL or Bundesliga? But I mean, the amount of games that the MLS plays in comparison is,
Yeah, it's a bit a lopsided thing with 30 teams.
Yeah.
So of course, there's definitely plenty.
Man, there's also bigger stadiums in England too, so I guess that kind
will
of
say,
balanced it a bit.
One other thing before we go off on Holmes, just kind of, I was looking around and looking at articles and social media and stuff. The Preston fans seem to love him. Like, they don't want him to leave, which is something that you don't really see nowadays from fans, right? Like, we're quick to throw this guy out and get to the next guy. But Preston fans seem to really appreciate what he's done for their club, and they don't really want him to leave. But if he's going back to the US, that's, they see why. So that's a good sign too, right? Like, he's one of those guys that gives it all. He fights for the badge kind of guy. So that's a big thing too. The Dynamo, we've seen the Dynamo, they want those guys. They're leaders, they're winners, that are all those intangibles.
I was gonna ask, and maybe probably put you guys on the spot, but did you guys know his comparisons, to the players around him? I know that looking at Full Mob, it mentions how he plays a right wing back, so that looks like it's his preferred position, a right wing back. So I guess maybe possibly something
most
like
of his career he played right wing.
Yeah,
most of his career,
and it shows
on Football Reference, if you look at his similar players, 2 guys that the people listening to us will probably know, Quinn Sullivan, who is the 15-year-old that plays for Philadelphia. he is one of them, and Robin Lod, who is plays for Minnesota United. He's a winger, kind of attacking guy too.
One of my favorites in MLS.
Yeah, so he's kind of in that mold, that kind of winger, kind of cut inside, kind of what they did with Coco, right? Like can be a winger, but also play in the middle and set things up. So that's what Holmes is, and yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, especially if you're getting on a free, not a lot of, not a lot to lose there for the club, right? Obviously they've seen more than just YouTube highlights on this guy. This guy's not an unknown, so whether you hit or not, you're not losing a lot. Granted,
he had national team hype at one point too.
Yeah, he has 2 caps. So like he was supposed, but I think he's battled injuries in his career, like
for sure.
If I
at Derby, he did, right?
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that, like, I remember when he came onto the U.S. national team scene, it was like, ooh, a guy that plays in England. You know how U.S. fans are. We see these guys that play in Europe, and we immediately have high hopes for them. But yeah, he was at Huddersfield, Scunthorpe, Derby, Huddersfield, Preston. He's like done the typical English journeyman career.
Yeah, so we love a good Englishman from Derby at the Dynamo.
Yeah.
We got Giles Barnes previously. He was a good guy. He was a good guy for the team for a few years. So
he could be like he could probably be like a little bit of a Barnes, right? Like a winger 10 type guy.
For sure. Barnes is a little more of a forward, but yeah, maybe it could be a similar profile on the right wing.
All right. So obviously that's what's happening right now with Dynamo. Let's before we end the show altogether, we'll touch a little bit on Dynamo 2. But before, I should have done some housekeeping, 45 minutes in. Maybe follow us on all our social medias. But before that, just go ahead and hit, BayouCitySoccer.net. You can check out all the articles that go on there. I mean, there's a ton of articles today. Like 4 or 5 came out today, and expect the same, throughout the week, especially with the Dash being back and Dynamo 2 and all those good stuff, man. So, I invite you guys to check out the site, man. We really appreciate it. It goes a long way. And yeah, while you're there, if you scroll, I think all the way down, it tells you all our social media. It's pretty easy. Bayou City Soccer on, basically every platform, including Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, basically everything that's out there, you will find us. I think there's a TikTok. Maybe we need Chris to do a TikTok at this point, huh?
Yeah, we have one, but we don't really use it yet. But stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. It's
gonna
happen.
Truth Social account yet?
I don't think we're on there yet.
But Dynamo 2, they've done well. Shout out to obviously Ugly Guppy. So make sure you check out Ugly Guppy. They do great stuff. Obviously, they keep us looking good as we cover the teams. Obviously, you see this hat. It's for us to be able to rep Bayou City Soccer. People are always asking for a hat, for a shirt, for a polo. We'll get there eventually, man. We'll hopefully have it out there for you guys that want to buy one and rep Bayou City Soccer, of course. As Dustin pulls out his good old faithful hat. I like it.
I gave mine away.
See? I hope there's a good story behind it.
Joey's spreading the gospel.
Yeah, I gave it to my brother. I don't wear hats.
There you go. That's fine. That's fine. I do have that beanie somewhere. Actually, somewhere. No, it's not up here. It's not up here. But I can probably give you that one since it's one of a kind, I may have to put it on.
So beanies I do wear. That's the only type of hat I ever wear.
Yeah. So I may have to pass that to you, brother. But of course, obviously as well, check out Elotes Bravos. There's 2 home games happening. So the weather's gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be cold and rainy like it was, a few weeks back. But who doesn't love an elote? Go get yourself an elote. And there's a boy Dago saying, yo, if I said that right. Is that too many O's? Not enough O's? All right, guys, but get into Dynamo 2 news. Everybody's pumped, right? I mean, we got Rushan over here saying Batoha Army Woken. Obviously, we know that he loves to dig at Joey and calls him Joey. The Alley U Army is here.
Right.
Where is Chris? I mean, you get all the love, Joey. But Bitoha, man, obviously getting a ton of, everybody loves to see him just because it seemed like he did well. It wasn't on goal that he scored, but Sabercat Stadium, it happened on Saturday night. The game, I got there and I was like, it got delayed. I told you guys, I'm like, man, it was meant to be here. And of course, I blame it all on my wife because she said, what happens if it rains? And I'm like, please don't say that. And of course, it did not rain, but apparently there was some kind of lightning storm and stuff. So, yeah, it wasn't all that great. There's Edson too, man. Edson, we gave you a shout out. We're looking forward to hearing all the good news happening down in RGV, man. So next episode, people will be staying tuned and want to hear about it. But yeah, I left in the 65th minute and the game was 1-0. Dynamo was winning with an own goal in the 23rd minute. Beto has speed. If we were talking about Arstu earlier, I mean, this guy can move the ball pretty fast. And did a couple little, what is it called, bicycle or step overs, and took a shot that gets ricocheted, goes in the back of the goal. He celebrated. Everybody celebrated. Everybody announced it as him, but it was definitely no goal. And yeah, so because I left early, I missed Di Morelli's goal and Sebastian Rodriguez goal. So, which I don't know if you guys got to watch the game or watch this replays, but they did what the Dynamo tend to give the opposition, right? They were gifted a couple balls, and they did well to put them away. Dustin, Joey, feel free to jump in and maybe just give your thoughts on that match, or just obviously getting kicked off on the right foot here.
It was a good start, 3 points. So best thing you could have happen on a opening game. 3 goals, 3 points, 3 different goal scorers, which is always very nice to see.
Yep.
Di Morelli, we love the kid. He was fantastic end of last season. Good to see him picking up where he left off.
Man.
He is a baller. He's a future baller for this team. Especially Rodriguez, again, he's on an MLS contract, so that means he's going to be asked to step up and be a top player in this team, and he started out with that. So I think that's all good things. I think Diego Gonzalez was a little quiet in this game, which is fine. I don't think he's the future of the team. I think he's kind of just a what's that guy's name? That striker that was just scoring a bunch of goals that kind of sucked on Dose the first year.
Oh yeah, he played for Kansas City last year.
Yeah,
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that guy.
Face.
He's one of he's
Avila.
Yeah, Beto Avila.
Yeah, he's a Beto Avila at this point. He's really good at this level, but he's never going to make that MLS jump, and that's fine. So I don't really even care too much how he performs, as long as the team's winning.
Yeah, what I would add here was obviously the 2 newcomers that were brought in. Pedro Cruz played very well as a goalkeeper, and then the center back that had been getting mentioned as Mikael was also being mentioned to be leaving was Felipe Andrade. And I told you guys, just watching him, if you look at FOMOB, they have it a really odd formation.
As a center mid, yeah.
But it was funny because I told you guys, I'm like, dude, he was playing. It was definitely like 3 in the back. So maybe FOMOB kind of has it right.
Yeah, I told Rudy us nerds call that a libero.
Yeah, it's true. But
I mean,
sometimes
we see Sviatchenko do that sometimes too, though.
But not how high this guy went. I mean, sometimes he looked like he was a false 9 half of the time. It was crazy. And I mean, he was good.
You could take that extra liberty in MLS Next Pro, I guess. If they try doing that with Sviatchenko at the MLS level, they get burned. So I
feel like he's Brazilian too. Like it's in your blood, right? Yeah.
It's either you're a really, really good center back or left back, or you're a 10. That's pretty much it. So no, I'm okay with it. I just found it surprising, especially after you guys spoke to Marcelo Santos and mentioning how close it was going to mirror the first team. I'm like, I definitely did not mirror that that game, because the way that Felipe Andrade was pushing up, it was funny to see, because when the ball was in dangerous spots, he was still, no matter what, was pushing up. And obviously created a lot of chaos, and it kept pushing the ball out wide for Dynamo 2 with Di Morelli, as you guys mentioned, or Batioja. But at the end of the day,
he'll see the first team
good.
soon, I think.
I think so too.
He's played many games already in the Brazilian league, so he has first team experience. I don't expect this stint with the second team to last very long.
I think he's like 22.
He's 22. Too. He's 22.
Yeah, he's 22. He's played like 20 something games in Brazil. He could be an MLS player. He just needs to get adapted to the country and the way they play.
Well, here it says that he played like 27 games with Fluminense, so he hasn't. Well, at least this is per Food Mob.
Yeah, I think he played a lot for their second team.
But I mean, the guy, he looks like a baller. Like
he's played in Copa Libertadores before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, dude, just seeing him. I mean, like you guys mentioned, this Brazilian kid. He looks the part. He looks like he's gonna make that jump pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the Brazilians, man, they came. I mean, it used to, at one point, it used to be all of, what's it called, Honduran players, but now we're seeing all this really good South Americans come in for the first team. Whether it be because of Ben or because of Pat, and they've hit in most than not, I would say. Shout out to Guinho, shout out to Valverde, but no,
I think that was before their time.
But this guy looks like he can play, man. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously, first game, they are off for a bit. Dustin, what's up?
I just wanted to add one thing before we wrap up on Dynamo 2. There are two goal scorers, Di Morelli and Rodriguez. I believe they're combined 32 years old, which is still younger than me. Yeah. So if you want to feel old, I think Di Morelli doesn't turn 16 until like the summer, and Sebastian Rodriguez is still 17. It's if you're looking for the next wave of Dynamo players, Dynamo 2 is doing a good job of bringing these academy kids along. And we saw the first season, I think, with Dynamo 2, and I know Joey and I have talked about this, like Jacob Evans and Talon Maples and these 25-year-olds that, like, it's cool. Like, yeah, you can win some games and make the playoffs or something, but you want Dynamo 2 to be this basically
who was that striker they had the first year?
Papa Indoy.
Yeah. Oh, that guy was so awful.
So you balance the we could be competitive and have 26-year-olds on the team, or we could bring in our teenagers.
He's not on the team. Oh, he's on Carolina Core.
No, not anymore.
He got cut.
Yeah, he went to Dynamo 3.
Ricky has been taking pictures and videos of him trying to get him a team, I think, man.
He played. How many games did he play for Carolina Core?
But Dustin, I was going to say, honestly, that for Dynamo 2, I took David with me because, David, Argentinian, loves soccer. So no matter what's on, man, if it's two roaches versus a mice, we're going to go watch it. And I was explaining that to him. I was telling him how, like, this is the fourth year of D2, and how it's evolved so much that there were so many 25, 26-year-olds year one, and some of the guys that were very hyped, like Palomino and so forth, and now you're actually seeing like a lot of this young kid, 15, 16 years old, playing very well. And not that all of them are going to break into the first team by any means, but it just creates a true pipeline of Houston soccer that hopefully it becomes a Philadelphia Union, it becomes the New York Red Bulls type of pipeline, and there's talent here in the city, of course, and I think that hopefully is the case for not just the Dynamo but for the Dash as well, in given time of being able to use that pipeline. And maybe we see a Harper Richardson knocking the ball in and becoming a top scorer. Yeah, you just never know, man. But we got to speak it into existence, man. At this
just
rate.
Saying, call me up.
Better than Ryan.
Okay, whatever we got to do, we got to do. Joey, Dustin, this has been fantastic. Joey, I owe you a question, man. I didn't get one in time for you.
I think it's on the spot.
Let's see, Dustin. You want to think of a question that you can ask him?
Oh, you wrap stuff up, and I'll come up with one real quick.
All right, sounds good. But again, guys, man, thank you guys so much for following us. As mentioned before, check out all our social medias. The guys, man, are creating. I mean, our group keeps getting bigger, but better. I mean, it's all about the quality, not the quantity, and we are doing our best to put as much information out there for you guys, man. I call myself an MLS sicko nowadays as well, and I've always wanted to see what's happening around the teams that we have and we follow. So, yeah, Jeff Strong always saying, Jacob Evans settled as the captain in Carolina, huh?
Yeah, I just looked him up. He's 27. Jacob Evans is.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
You know, Papa Ndoye has a youth player development camp.
He does.
That's pretty badass.
I was trying to see.
You know what they say about those who can't do.
Right. I was trying to remember. Oh, Juan Castillo was the other guy that I was blanking on when I was saying Palomino.
Oh, yeah. He just, fell off the face of the earth.
He's playing with, I think, a
Deportivo.
second division or a first division team in Colombia. Mikael, that's where it was. I was telling David about, obviously the Mikael, how I was like, can you believe that a few years back we're watching Mikael here? Now he got sold for a good amount of money. And this is gonna pull the show way far back, but I wanted to mention Femi. Femi looked good. He looked like not necessarily Mikael, but man, he was cleaning up a lot of stuff. And
Femi's learning. Yeah, Femi's learning. He's gonna get there.
It's gonna get there. Let's see. Christian says Joey with Papa Jabs. That just sounds funny.
Okay, before we wrap up the show, here's my question for Joey.
All right, let's see it.
All
Let's
right,
hear it.
our boy Aliu led the team in goals last year with 6. The only other time that the Dynamo have had a leading goal scorer have less than that was 2011.
Oh, was it? I thought it would be 2016.
5 goals.
5
Okay,
goals,
that season. 2011. There was actually 3 guys that tied with 5 goals. Can you name any of them?
Ooh. 2011.
3 guys, you said?
Yeah. 2016 was also 6.
Names going through my head. Kalen Carr, Cam Weaver. Is Cam Weaver?
Cam Weaver had 4 that year.
Was Kalen Carr one?
Kalen Carr had 1 that year. He only played in 9 games. He must
That was
have
the
been hurt.
concussion protocol.
Okay.
Probably.
That's before Will Bruin, right? Or is Will Bruin one of them?
Will Bruin is one of them.
Will Bruin's one of them? Okay.
Will Bruin at 21 years old that year.
5 goals. Brad Davis, he had 5 goals that year?
He had 4.
4?
Colin Clark had 4. Rest in peace.
Who else? Who are their forwards on that team?
2 defenders had 5
2
goals.
defenders. Oh. Boswell?
Boswell had 5.
Dang. Okay.
And the other
Corey
guy was,
Ash?
No, he's a defender, midfielder. He moved to Europe.
Oh, Jeff Cameron.
Jeff Cameron, Will Bruin, and Bobby Boswell.
God.
That's great. And that team
MLS
made it to
Cup
the
that year,
MLS
man.
Cup. Yeah,
Right?
that's crazy. But I guess, you spread the
good
love
old
around.
days.
With You said there's a lot of 4 and 5 goals.
Yeah.
And stuff, so.
They
Did
scored,
who had more than 6 goals in 2016?
2016. They only had 6 that year. It was their
Andrew
leader.
Wenger, right? Was it
Wenger and
Andrew Wenger?
Manotas had 6.
Yeah, so that's the year Andrew Wenger led with no goals.
Yeah, man,
That's crazy.
Dynamo lore.
Look at
My
that.
lord. Kubo
Look at
with his donut that year.
Kubo.
They should have
Shout
got
out.
Papa and Doyle on that team. He was probably 25 at that point.
Got to wrap up the show with Papa Jabs.
Papa Jazz, man. I love that. That's like a fantastic comment.
No actual hate towards Papa. I'm sure he's a lovely guy.
Yeah.
Love you, Papa.
We love you,
It's all
Papa.
jokes.
But yeah, it's obviously stay tuned. This show won't come back till next Monday. I will not be there, so please be kind to the host. Dustin's probably gonna be in here. Edson, Chris, Joey, maybe a guest.
I'm gonna work on a guest. I'll see what I can do.
Chris keeps talking about a guest. I'm like, bring them on when I'm not here, man.
Can we bring up that comment from Doggo? What's he talking
comment
about?
for Doggo?
Rumors that Aliu will go to San Diego. Loyal? Does San Diego Loyal even exist anymore?
No, they don't. I think he's just messing with us, man.
Oh,
Because of the whole-
say.
yeah.
Does San Diego Loyal not exist anymore?
No,
David
you got
Donovan killed them.
San Diego FC, yeah, whatever
Yeah.
these are called now. But yeah, obviously this is not the last podcast, and as mentioned, a bunch of articles are coming their way here. Oh, I mean, honestly, every single day seems like we have a ton. But Wednesday, if you're, kind of feeling bored, lonely, you want to hear everything about what's happening with the Dash, what the guys feel the predictions are going to be for them for the NWSL. Join them. Orange and Blueprints has been a hit so far. I mean, it seems like it's going to be a full house, I believe. Diego and Manny will be there. Dustin, you're probably going to be joining them. No, maybe not. Okay. And Theo, possibly.
I'm going to the rodeo Wednesday.
Ooh,
I
okay.
remembered after I told you that. Yes,
That's true.
the boys will hold it down without me.
Didn't you see that same show last year? Is it?
It's Lauren Daigle this year.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah. It was King and Country the other time.
Yeah.
We need a rodeo here. That'd be fun.
Bro, the rodeo is fun. It takes all your money. It takes all your money. I don't let my kids, they're too young, but I'm like, dude, don't play any stuff. I don't want to be carrying around like just giant teddy bears and stuff. It's awful. I don't want to be carrying that. So I tell them not to, but we're there for the food and whatever else we can find, man. So Joey, if you've never been to the Houston Rodeo, man, come down here next year. We'll take
Is
you.
it always in this like March time?
Yes,
it's always around
end of
March.
February, early March.
Yeah, by the time spring break is over here in Texas, it basically ends.
Yeah, the last week is usually spring break.
You, man. And you don't even. I mean, granted, the shows are cool because you get to see the actual rodeo, bullfighting and all that fun stuff. But just going for the carnival and all that stuff, man. It's fun. It's fun. Hopefully, a lot of the newbies, for Houston Dynamo FC made it out this week and next for sure. But I was gonna say something, and I completely lost my case as I was talking about the rodeo. Oh yes, so obviously Wednesday you got Orange and Blueprints. Dustin's not gonna be there, so don't cry too hard. And then Dago, what did Dago say? $10 for 3 Fridays. Yes, bro, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Bro, that's everything
Fridays
nowadays.
have always been expensive though, everywhere.
They are.
And we used to have like carnivals and stuff in Jersey, and you spend like $15 on like a thing of Zeppelis or fried Oreos.
And
that's always how it's been with that stuff.
I know everything's expensive, but it's good. It's good. Yeah, and I was gonna say, obviously, for the people that speak Spanish and want to listen to Spanish, because there's a lot of people that we see here. Jay Hurtado always joins us on Thursdays, as you mentioned it here. Yes, we will have Movimiento Naranja on Thursday, so feel free. Edson says, "R.I.P. Loyal." I missed that one. So if you guys want to listen to Movimiento Naranja, that's on Thursdays. That's Houston Dynamo in Spanish. Wednesday is Houston Dash, and man, we're just busy. We're busy here.
Yeah,
we're keeping it going.
Ton of content this week on the site, so make sure you're hitting it and come see us on Friday and Saturday. Me and Rudy, at least.
I'll be there.
We'll be there on Friday.
We'll be there on Friday, and we'll see who goes on Saturday.
Come find us. We might have some stickers, right?
We sure do, guys. But don't forget,
see these lovely faces. Come find us.
Hold it down. Keep it forever orange. Joey's going to enjoy that game from far away. He needs to come hang out with us, man. Come hang out with us. But again, thank you. Oh, last thing, actually. For sure, this is the last thing. If you catch this, not live on the podcast feed, leave us a review. Leave us a comment. Give us 5 stars. Tell us, what you like, what you don't like. We really appreciate it. We see a lot of people listening to this and tuning in. I mean, the metrics, as Joey said, the stats don't lie, man. We know that you guys are out here following and enjoying all this content. So let us know, man. Tell us what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, man. And like Jay Hurtado, he listens all the way from LA, so he's even farther away than Joey is. But you know what? We're here. Hold it down. Don't ever do that sign again, man. But y'all take care, man. It was great talking to you guys, and peace. Is that U of H? U of H.
Peace.